If you've been watching or reading the news lately, you are aware that the Russian Federation has directed a military operation against Ukraine. It is my opinion that neither Russia, Ukraine, Europe, or the United States is in a position to afford a major war at this time. This video will explain the intent of the recent economic sanctions against Russia, why this conflict was unnecessary but very predictable, and why we will see an increase in the number of conflicts like this in the future, unless we decide not to. This is a map of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR. Ukraine joined the Soviet Union in 1922 and declared its independence in August of 1991. The Russian Federation declared its independence from the Soviet Union shortly thereafter, in December of 1991. This is a declassified CIA report that compared the Soviet and US economies. On page 4, it states economic strength is a major determinant of international power. The Soviets had clearly recognized this relationship in numerous public statements over the years. The most famous of these were made by Khrushchev, who boasted that the Soviet Union would outproduce the United States in 1970 and that his country would have a higher standard of living than any capitalist country by 1981. These forecasts have not come true. So what did happen and what can we learn from it to make better decisions in the future? The first thing to know is Russia is absolutely massive. It's approximately 1.8 times the size of the United States. It's got a large population. In fact, it's got the 9th largest in the world at 142.3 million people. By comparison, the United States is third at 331.8 million people. What's really interesting about that is in 1970, in the middle of the Cold War, the two countries' populations were only separated by about 76 million people. And when the Soviet Union began to collapse, by about 101 million people. But after that, the US's population continued to grow to about 331 million, but Russia's population stopped growing and plateaued at 144 million, or 187 million person difference. But relative to other European countries, Russia's absolutely number one. The next closest contender is Germany at 83 million. But what Russia's not number one at is gross domestic product per capita or economic output per person, which is a gauge of standard of living. These countries are absolutely tax havens, which I'll deal with in another video. I believe these countries are quasi-tax havens, so Norway, the United States of America, and Denmark seem to be doing it right when it comes to standard of living proxies. Who's not doing it right? Russia at 83rd in the world with a per capita GDP between $10,000 and $11,000, depending on whose estimates you're looking at. Another thing that Russia is not number one at is ranking by market capitalization of domestic companies, which is basically the total value of the publicly traded companies on their stock market, which is somewhere around $576 billion. This is Finviz.com's S&P 500 market map. So these are the top 500 companies in the United States, and the size of the box indicates the company's market capitalization, or how much the company's worth if you multiply the outstanding shares by the current price of the stock. AAPL is the trading symbol for Apple, and its market capitalization is almost $2.7 trillion, or $2 trillion more than the free float value of the Russian stock market. In fact, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Tesla are all larger than that value, which would fit in this box if it were on this map. This site provides a list of the top 20 Russian publicly traded companies. These companies are in the oil and gas industries. These companies are in the mining and material industries. And Sberbank is in the financial industry, which was the largest target of the recent US sanctions. One side note, if I saw a mutual fund with this composition, I'd most likely recommend you sell it because it's a recipe to underperform. The total free float market cap of these stocks is $362 billion, which means combined they're just a little smaller than Walmart. As mentioned before, Sberbank is its 7th largest company and its largest bank by far. It's almost twice as large as the next largest financial institution, VTB Bank. So any sanction against these two banks are going to have severe financial and economic repercussions to the Russian economy. And according to The Guardian, the UK has imposed sanctions which freeze the assets and impose a travel ban on 8 named individuals and 11 businesses, including 6 banks. And you can read the article if you want to know who the individuals are. There's VTB Bank, more individuals and companies that were sanctioned, and Sberbank. More individuals and companies the US sanctioned, and finally we get to the Internet Research Agency, a Russian company engaged in online influence operations on behalf of Russia. So don't believe everything you read on social media and don't share memes unless you verify they're factual, because Russia's goading a lot of people to share information that's beneficial to their political agenda. Are the sanctions working? Absolutely. The Russian ruble has been depreciating against the US dollar for over 2 decades now, but in the last 5 days it lost 20% of its value. That's going to create some very irate Russian oligarchs and some very pissed off Russian citizens. Speaking of financial damage, RSX is an exchange-traded fund or a basket of 31 Russian stocks. It dropped from $33.60 in late October to $11.50 a share at the time of this recording. That's worse than what we experienced during the 2008 financial crisis. This would just be a sad story and not a scary one if Russia didn't have over 6,000 nuclear weapons. These are the 2021 estimated global nuclear warhead inventories from armscontrol.org. The United States is estimated to have 5,500 nuclear warheads, and all other countries have sub 350. Russia may have more nuclear weapons than the US, but do you know what the US has more of? Billionaires. The original intent of this video was to show how the wealth of the United States billionaires is vastly larger than the disclosed wealth of Russia's top billionaires, and how if they shorted Russia's stock market, they could probably get Russia's oligarchs to put pressure on President Putin to call back the invasion on Ukraine, but the market already did that before I even had time to produce this video, as indicated by Moscow closing the Russian stock market today, and the fact they're not allowing any shares to be shorted, and no foreigners can sell shares as of Monday, February 28th. If you want to avoid Russian stocks and their trade partners, stay clear of emerging market investments for now. So again, Russian sanctions, are they working? Yes, so well that we need to reconsider how globalization and corporate entanglement has changed warfare. What are my biggest concerns? Short term, the safety of innocents in Ukraine, World War III, and the use of nuclear weapons. Long term, that a large group of Russian innocents will be pushed into poverty as their economy tanks and Russia is isolated from international trade, and resource shortages in the future will increase the number of these conflicts around the globe. What am I doing about it? Trying to solve the financial problems here so that I can work on a plan to address those predictable shortages and prepare for those unnecessary but inevitable wars. I'm Stephen with WatchGuard Capital, and we need to start investing our time wisely.